What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Wright State University Veteran Voices Project. I am Navy veteran and content manager Jeremy Tkach. On behalf of the Veteran Voices Project, we'd like to thank you for watching this interview and to let you know that the best way to support us, and especially the veterans featured on this channel, is to hit that subscribe button. So go ahead, feel free to smash that subscribe button. Please hit that like button and go ahead and comment and share. Again, thank you for watching this important story. Hope you enjoy.
We are recording the interview of Alicia Scriven. This interview is being conducted by Ericka Carter from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in the New Media Incubator. It is 4:26 p.m. on January 14th, 2019. Almost there. How are you?
Good, you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming out today. Okay, where and when were you born?
I was born in Dallas, Texas in August 28th, 1966.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who were your parents and what did they do?
My mom is Gary Ann Cooper and my father is Ronald Starnes. My mom, she was along the lines of like a secretary, and my father was a butcher. Yeah, and so they were teenagers when they had me. So she was in high school and she had me at 17. Yeah, and so she named me after the best dressed girl and the most popular girl in her high school. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So back then they didn't send her away or?
No. My mom had me, yeah, she had me young, but for the most part, no, she raised me. I think she might have been in her senior year of high school.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have two. I have a brother and a sister. My sister is a homemaker and my brother is a barber and a hairstylist. He does women and men's hair. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were you doing before you entered the service?
So, before I came in, right before I came in, I want to say that I was a secretary at a strip mall. So I was like the person who did the leases and stuff like that for the mall.
How
Yeah.
did you get a job like that?
My grandfather had a garage, a mechanic, and he rented a space there. And so when that opening came, he told me about it. And I just went and interviewed. Not a lot of people were trying to get the job. So yeah, it was a nice little job. It was me. That was a job that I had before, right after I left college. So I went to college. I went to Prairie A&M University for a year, and then came home. And so I went to junior college and worked. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so was the big university is a little much at first, and so
It was, because all I did was party.
Oh,
yeah. And this is what Mom said I was going to do, but I was, I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to have it. I'm like, I went to school to be a nurse. And then the first couple of classes of biology, and when they said that we have to dissect a frog, and I'm like, this is not the job I want to do. And so I stayed there for a little while, and then tuition and stuff ran out, so I came back home. And then from there is where I got the job at the mall.
And how old were you?
I want to say I might have been like 19 or 20 by that time.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then you started going to junior college.
I went to junior college.
How long did you stay there?
I might have stayed there. So I had gone to junior college right after high school. So I did junior college for probably like about, half a year, and then maybe a year, and then I went off to Prairie View, and then I came back, and then my mom was like, well, you're gonna have to work and do school. So I went to school, junior college, and worked. So I probably did that for like another 6 months or so. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have another job, or was it the military next?
After that job, it was the military.
Okay, what
Yeah.
led you, which branch? Let's start with
Okay,
that.
Air Force.
Okay, why the Air Force?
You know what? So this is what happened. So I caught the bus. I'm from Dallas in the big city, so I caught the bus home every day. And one day on the bus, I saw the recruiter's office. And so I just got off the bus. Yeah. So that bus was like the last bus going to my house. It's the big city, so I knew I could call my dad if I needed a ride. So I just got off the bus, went in the Army recruiter's office. No one was in there. So then I just walked to the next office, and the Air Force was in there, and his name was Tech Sergeant Key. And I told him, I was like, I don't know much about the military, but I think I want to join. I want to travel. And he was like, okay. And then just that quick, it happened like, okay, you do the pre-test. I did the pre-test, and he and I talked a little bit. And then I'm like, okay. So then it's probably I was probably like about 2 hours late from going home when I was supposed to be home. So I called my dad, and I was like, hey, can you come pick me up? I missed the bus. And he was like, okay. And I told him where I was at. And so when he came to pick me up, and he was like, what were you doing there? And I said, I was talking to a recruiter. And he was like, oh, don't tell your mom. Yeah. He was like, your mom's not going to want you going to the military. And I'm like, I want to go. I want to leave. I want to do something different.
How old were
you?
Sorry.
I want to say I must have been 21. Okay. I must have been about 20 or 21. I'm going to say I was 20 because I think back then that was the legal age to drink. So I think I was 20. And everything just kind of opened up. I stopped there, talked to the recruiter, took the ASVAB test, took the physical, passed it, and then it was like, okay, we can get you into basic training like March time frame. So I want to say it might have been like February or January, and things just started rolling. Yeah.
At some point you had to tell your mom.
I did tell her. I told her, and she was like, why you want to do that? And I'm like, it's just something different. I want to travel. I want to see the world. I had a friend who had been in the military, so I would see him come home in his uniform and stuff. But for the most part, I just wanted to get away. I just wanted to do something different. Yeah, and so I left.
Did you finish, did you get a degree from college?
No, I did not. Not at the
that
time.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So we're on to basic.
We went to basic. Was the first time. So I remember they put us at a hotel that was still in the same city that we were at. And I had never flown before. So that was my biggest fear, flying. And so they flew us from Dallas to San Antonio, And I remember getting there, and it was dark, and it was night, and it was like time to go to bed. And then you got all these people yelling at you, pick them up, put them down, pick them up, put them down. And I'm thinking, was this the right thing to do? But then I just like, okay, you want to travel. So this is what it takes for you to travel. So did basic training, and I remember I don't think we got to use the phone the first couple of weeks. But when we did, I called my mom crying.
Oh.
I'm like, I'm ready to go. They're yelling at me. I don't know if this was the right thing to do. And my mom, she's like, oh, I'm going to call my congressman. And I'm thinking, okay, wait, no, maybe I over-exaggerated. So let me stay for a little bit longer. And it wound up being okay. I just kind of related it to, so when I was in college, I pledged a little fraternity. And that's kind of how I was able to get through and say, if I can pledge that fraternity, that sorority, I can do this. So everything just kind of worked out. One of the best decisions I ever made.
Do you remember any drill instructors specifically?
One was Tech Sergeant Red. I remembered her because she always cleared her throat like all the time, even when she was giving presentations to us. And I remember when the superintendent of that particular squadron came in and she was giving a presentation, and I don't know if she's been graded on, and he asked her, he stopped her in the middle of her presentation. He said, "Is there something in your throat?" And she was like, "No." He's like, "Well, could you please stop clearing it?" And I thought, yeah, because she was really mean to us. And then we had another lady. I know her first name was Carol, but I can't remember her last name. Nice lady. Yeah, she was a nice lady for the most part. You know, they were like staff sergeants, excuse me, and like tech sergeants. So we, you know, they were gods to us. We didn't know any better. And it was different. It was different than anything I was used to. I had, but for the most part, I liked it. You know, I like the sisterhood of the women there, and then everybody's just trying to get through. So you're helping each other get through. And that's what I like the most about it, you know. So, yeah, I would do it again.
Okay.
Yeah, I would do it again.
Just for civilians that may not know, a superintendent is what rank?
That person, he might have been a master sergeant.
So E8?
E7.
E7.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just remember him coming through there. You know, we were all on our P's and Q's, and she used to fuss at us all the time. And so when he said that to her, we all just kind of looked at each other. Of course, we didn't make a noise, but we were just kind of, after everything was done, we was like, yeah, she finally, you know, got what she deserved. But yeah, so we did that and met some really cool girls when I was there. I had this, so when we were in basic training, you know, you didn't worry about your hair. And it wasn't like braids. Nobody talked about braids and stuff back then. You just put your hair up and you went. You were doing good if you could take a shower, you know, shower. You didn't shave. You didn't have time to shave legs or nothing like that. So you just get in, and it was like a big bay, and everybody just took a shower. You got in, you got it, because you had things that you had to do. So you didn't have a lot of time to spend in that shower because somebody had to go behind you and clean it. So everybody had details that they had to do. So I remember we were getting close to graduation, and so our TI allowed us to get our hair done. So we were like, oh yeah, we're gonna get our hair done. There was probably about 5 of us. So we marched over to the BX, and there was like a salon in there, you know, next to it. And the lady did our hair, and we felt really good about ourselves. It was close to graduation. And when we were leaving, it started to rain. So the lady at the BX said, put these plastic bags on your head. Okay. We thought she knows the regs. She knows what we can and we can't do. So we're going to put these plastic bags on our head. But we're going to keep our military bearing, and we're going to march down Lackland with these plastic AFES bags on our heads. So 5 of us, we're marching and we're calling cadence, and this TI, he drove up so fast. He came on the curb and jumped out of his car, and he asked us, he says, what do y'all think you're doing? And we're like, going back to our, you know, our dorm store. We gave our important statements. He was like, so he was shorter than I was. So he had to look up at me, and he said, what is that on your head? And I'm like, a bag, sir. You know, trying to explain to him, we just got our hair done. Oh my gosh, just the look on his face. He reached up and grabbed all the bags off of our head and asked for 341s and all of that. And we just knew we were in so much trouble. We got back to the dorm. Nobody said anything. We didn't tell anybody what happened because we didn't want to get in trouble. We were just going to wait and see what happened. She never said anything. We got back to the dorm. Everybody said, what happened to y'all's hair? Oh, it was raining. You know, we had like little puff balls and our hats and stuff. But I was thinking, now hindsight's 2020. What was I thinking? Putting that AFES bag on my head with my uniform on and just marching. You know, it's just like how gullible we were. We didn't know any better. So yeah, but I enjoyed basic training. I met a lot of people. Ran into, about a year and a half ago, ran into a young lady that I was in basic training with. I knew her instantly. We were sitting in a classroom over on the base, and I came in the classroom late. We were just giving orientation for some instructors that was coming in to teach. And so I was sitting at the table behind her, and so she had asked a question, and I instantly thought, boy, that voice sounds familiar. And then she kind of turned her head slightly so I could see her just a little bit, and I thought, I know that girl. And I asked her, I said, excuse me, what's your name? And she said, Patricia. But she gave her maiden name. She gave her married name. And I said, Patty Brown? And she was like, yes. And I looked at her, I said, I'm Alicia Starnes. And she looked at me and I said, basic training, 1987. And we instantly just started hugging because it was just like a moment and everybody's just like looking at us like, what happened? I was like, I went to basic training with her. I haven't seen her since 1987. How wild is that our paths crossed again? Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah, that was wild. So that was really cool. Mm-hmm.
AIT. Oh, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Your job training, because in the Army we call it AIT.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. What did you do and where and why?
I did medical logistics. When he sold it to me, my recruiter, he was like, yeah, you're going to be taking care of $1 million worth of supplies and equipment. And I'm thinking, I can do that, you know. When I was in high school, I worked at the pharmacy. So I'm like, I can do that. That's what I'm used to doing. I can take care of a whole $1 million account myself. I'm good at that. So when I got there, you know, and you go through basic and you go to tech school, and everybody called us box kickers. And I'm like, why are you calling us box kickers? Well, basically, it was just working in the warehouse doing medical. I'm like, oh, you know, but our people, our superintendents and the people that we worked with, let us know how important our job was. And it was very important, you know, to get the supplies to the customers and stuff like that. So that's what I did. I did medical logistics. My first base was Blytheville, Arkansas. Yeah. Whew. So there was nothing there. It was a flying base. I want to say they flew heavies. It wasn't that far from home. It was up the street from Memphis and not that far from, I want to say Jonesboro, Arkansas. Yeah, so met some pretty cool people there. I love the job. I think I stayed there for 2 years, and that's where I got married at that base there.
So is that where you met your husband?
That's where I met my husband at, yeah.
Okay. How long was your basic and job training together?
Basic might have been 6 weeks, and then my job might have been 2 months, so 8 weeks altogether. Mm-hmm. So March. And then I got there March 30th, and I want to say I got to my base in August, mid part of August, yeah.
You came home for leave? Right?
I came home for leave in my little uniform. I was so proud. My mom was so proud of me, too. Oh. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's delightful. Okay, you get to Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
How long are you stationed there?
I got there in 87, and I left in 89, so 2 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. His husband?
Yeah, I'm divorced now, but I got married there. I used to notice this guy. So we lived in the dorm, and then in the rec room of the dorm, and then up above was a big bay window that was like in the rooms connected to that, the hallway. And I would see this guy just standing there looking at me, and I thought, that's strange. But then he would look, and then he wouldn't say anything, but he'd just go on his way. So that was going on for about 2 months or so. And then one night, midnight chow. Midnight chow was when you would go to meet all the guys getting off of shift, the plane guys and the cop guys. And so one night, I think it was like after coming from the NCO club on a Wednesday night, because that's when they had R&B night. Coming from the club, went to midnight chow, and there's this guy, that guy was there. But his friend was trying to hit on me. I wasn't interested in it. I wasn't interested in him either, but it was just the fact, you know, so are you going to say something? Because you're always staring at me. He didn't say anything. He went and sat down. His friend invited me to the table. So wasn't interested in his friend at all. Wasn't interested in him at all either. So I think our paths might have crossed a couple of times before he actually said something to me. And then we just kind of clicked. And then we got married from there. He got out of the service He got out on an early out, got out of the service, went back to Maryland, and then I got an assignment to England. And so we got married and we just moved on to England as a little family. Just he and I, though, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So England.
Mm-hmm.
Please elaborate.
England was wonderful. We got there. He and I, we didn't know anybody, you know. We stayed at a little place called the Bird in the Hand in Mildenhall. We got there. I was stationed at Feltwell, and it was like a contingency hospital. So it had all of these medical supplies in tri-walls, and they were on these rafters, and they just, you know, went up maybe like 2 or 3 stories up in the air. And we maintained that. So we did like inventories on them, take them down, inventory them, take out the expired stuff, put in the good stuff, and put it back up there. And they were just for contingency. So if something happened in England, they would come and get our stuff and set up a whole hospital. So we were stationed there. I think we got there in the springtime, and it was nice. Didn't take advantage of it until it was almost time to go. We didn't do as much traveling as we wanted to and stuff like that. So, but we had my son, my first son over there. I loved England. I loved being overseas. I loved doing the job over there. I love the camaraderie of the people, how you're just kind of drawn together because you don't have the ability to go home to your mom or go home to your cousins. So you make the people there your family, you know, and they did so many things over there for us that was very family oriented. Football games, basketball games, movies, everything you needed was right there on the base, you know, and then we stayed on the economy for a little bit, and after that we moved on base. But it was really nice being there. Met some cool people while working there. You know, we were kind of secluded to ourselves, so we didn't have a big hospital that we were working with. We were not that far from Lakenheath, so we would go back and forth to pick up our supplies and stuff like that. But it was a nice tour. We did it for 4 years.
How? What were your work hours?
It felt well. It was 7:30 to 4:30. So in England, you know, at the time you go to work, it's dark. You get off work, it's dark, you know. So that's how it was for a while. So we go in from 7:30 to 4:30. We just kind of do our inventories, and that was kind of it, you know. There was probably like about 15 of us just stationed in that one little building there. We were a detachment from the big hospital, which was probably only like about 10 miles away. And I lived over on the side where the big hospital was. But yeah, just normal hours and just kind of secluded back there. So we kind of we just worked on our inventory that we had, and just keeping that place clean was our big thing, you know, doing the inventory and keeping the warehouse clean. Mm-hmm.
Your rank?
Then I think I might have been a senior airman at that time.
So
yeah.
E3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How did your husband get along? Did he find work on post?
Yeah, so when he was going out to do job interviews, right, and we didn't understand, you know, we knew that everyone spoke English, so that was good. But I remember he went for a job interview on the economy, and he came back and he said, we was talking about it, and he said, yeah, so they said they're going to call me in a fortnight. And we were like, you know, we were sitting there talking, and some other people that had been there for a while, she was like, yeah, that's like 2 weeks. And he said, no, fortnight. That to us meant like the next night. And it's like, no, a fortnight means 2 weeks. And we're like, oh, so it was just like little things like that we had to catch on to. So he wound up working at the commissary at night, being the night supervisor at the commissary. So that was wonderful because he got paid really good money to do that. So that's how, you know, so by that time we had 2 incomes, you know, I was working and he was working. So we were doing pretty well. And then a year later, my son was born. He was premature, so he had to be born on the economy. Yeah. So this is what's ironic about that. He was born, he weighed 4 pounds, 3 ounces, my son. He came premature, he was like 7 weeks early. And when they scheduled me to deliver the baby, the doctor came in and was making his rounds, and he said, are you from the base? He had a British accent. I said, yes. I was telling where I was from. And so he says, well, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Dallas, Texas. And he was like, oh, really? I said, yeah. He said, I did my residency in Dallas, Texas. I said, you did? And he said, what year were you born? And I told him in 1966. And he said, like, he did his residency from 65 to like 68. So he said, I could have been your doctor. And I said, you very well could have been. I thought, wow, how cool is that, But I had him over there, and he was fine, perfectly fine. And so that was like my really first time missing home, because I didn't have my mom there. So I just relied on my other friends who had kids, but I didn't know what to do with a baby. I couldn't even remember how to sterilize a bottle when I got him home. I know. I was just like, even he was premature, so we had to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks. And so my husband came every day to visit us, and it was probably maybe a 50 to 65-mile drive each way, So he did that because, he came back and forth, and so we were like ready to go home. This is all nice, and I'm okay with drinking tea. And everything like that, but I'm ready to go home. So they would serve me hot tea, and I'm thinking, I said, do y'all have ice? And so she brought me a glass of ice, and I mixed that with some sugar, and she looked at me, and she was like, oh, and I was like, yeah. I said, I'm from Texas, I'm from the South. We drink sweet tea, not the hot tea that they serve with milk. So we stayed in the hospital with my son for 2 weeks, brought him home, and then just took care of him, the best that we knew how. They allowed a midwife to come back and forth to the house to help. Yeah, it was pretty nice.
And different.
And different, yeah. And so at the job, there were 3 of us pregnant at the same time. So I think I was the first one to have my son, and so it was like a trickle effect. So after I had mine, about 8 weeks later, another girl had hers, and another girl, so we were all out on maternity leave, So that was a headache for my boss. But for the most part, yeah, we had a good time over there, met some really good people, yeah.
How long was maternity leave?
So back then, if you had a cesarean, it was 8 weeks. And if you had a regular delivery, I want to say it was 4 weeks. But with him being so tiny, they let me have some extra time. So my time didn't start until I actually left the hospital. And then the location that I worked with, like I say, our tempo was just doing inventories. That's all we did all the time. So somebody would pick up the slack when you were not there, or you go in and you work half a day and then go back home, because he was so small that he couldn't go to daycare yet. Yeah, so I was able to stay at home with him for a while until he was able to go to daycare. Yeah.
Okay, so you enjoyed England, wonderful people, good time, first baby boy.
First baby.
What happens next? Where do you go?
After that, so now we're like a little family. We're, I got hit, my dad died when I was in England. So I was thinking to myself, okay, so we hadn't decided on where we wanted to go yet. But they came back and said, hey, we can get you to Texas if you want to go be closer to your family. And I just thought about it. I said, well, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, because we're kind of our little family right now. And so we thought about it, and we was like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. So we went to Montana. Yeah, I asked for it. I asked to go to Great Falls, Montana. One of the coldest places I'd ever been. Yeah.
Was it just cold in winter, or was it like three seasons of winter or something like that?
It was kind of like 3 seasons of winter. It was like a dry cold too. England was cold. It was a wet, bone-chilling cold though, But over there, it was, Montana, it was beautiful. It was one of the prettiest places I'd ever been. The air was so clean. You could drive miles and miles. I guess that's why they call it big sky country, that you won't see anything but mountains and sky. It was nice. Met some good people there. Had my second child there. Worked at the clinic. We had a brand new, what they call a super clinic there, worked medical logistics there, loved it. I really loved working medical logistics. Met good people there, had my second child, but he had some medical issues. So we only stayed there for 2 years. I got what's called an Exceptional Family Members Program. Got to move from England to, from Montana to here. Yeah, so in that whole process, the Air Force has been great to me. And I say that because they really took care of me and my family. They took care of me and my kids, and when they got sick and the things that they did, they flew me from base to base to find a doctor for my son. Yeah, they flew me to Washington State was the first place. I went to Shriners, did that, and then the doctor at Shriners said, I think it's better to get you down to Texas where you're closer to family. So they sent me to San Antonio. We did that on AirVac, went down there, talked with doctors. They're like, yeah, we would love to take your son's case. And then they said, well, we'll want to go ahead and cast him, put a cast on him. And I thought, no, maybe I need to wait, to his dad. We'll do that when I get here. Go back and was talking with my first sergeant and all of that, saying, he's like, this can go really fast. And I'm thinking, okay. He was like, no, like really fast. 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, we knew that we were moving. From the time that I came back from Texas, from San Antonio, 2-week notification we were moving. And I thought we were moving to Texas. And they said, no, you're moving to Ohio. And I'm like, Ohio? Where is that? And they said Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I'm like, I don't know where that's at. So I called my mom. I said, you ever been to Ohio? And she was like, no. And she got out a map. And she's like, oh, it's in between, Chicago and all of this stuff. So I was like, oh, okay. So we were gone, like within 3 weeks. Packed up, moved here to Ohio to get my son taken care of. Yeah, so I was very blessed because in Montana, it was so small. They didn't have the facilities to take care of him. And one of the doctors that would come in and out of the clinic was a sports doctor for the St. Louis Rams at the time. And so she would look at him and take care of him, make sure he had, the casting and all of that. But we knew he needed more. He needed more care. And then as opposed to flying back and forth, it was just best for us just to leave there and come here. And so here's where we came. Yeah, and so this is my kid's second home. Yeah.
What did you change jobs? You said I love medical logistics.
Yeah.
Like you changed jobs.
So I did eventually. Came to Wright Pat, loved medical logistics, worked with some awesome people. Then they came out with something like a forced retraining. They had too many AFSCs. They had too many people in specific AFSCs at certain ranks that they needed to move around, kind of do like a forced leveling. And so they started racking and stacking by how long you had been on base. And so by that time I had been at Wright Pat for 9 years because I'm here for an EFMP. I'm here for you to take care of my child. And the only way that I can PCS is to a location that can take care of my child. So they said, okay, you're gonna have to retrain. And I thought, I'm not leaving medical logistics. I love this job. I love the people. I'm going places. I'm doing things in this career field. And then they had a listing and they said, okay, they're racking and stacking, and I was number 6 for medical logistics. And I thought, oh man. And then you have to talk in with people. They say, you better choose a job before they choose one for you. And the jobs they had, they were like, load master. And I'm like, I'm not getting ready to get on nobody's plane, do no load master. They were like manpower. I'm horrible with numbers. I can't count to save my life. Not like that, not. And so they said education and training. I was like, education and training? We have education and training people in my building and they're never there. They're always gone doing fun stuff. I can do that job. So I went up and I talked to the functional manager for the base. She was a senior master sergeant. And I had already been doing additional duty education and training stuff. So I thought, I can do that. So I went over there and put in the application to get it. And, even though I really didn't want to do it, I said, I'm going to just do this, So come to find out, long story short, they only choose 2 people out of the career field. It was myself and another young lady, and we were the only 2 that volunteered. The rest of them were just kind of sitting back waiting. And then they said that they had enough of people coming out of career fields that they could fill the other career fields, so they didn't need any more. So we thought, okay, fine, then I renege. I want to stay. And it's like, nope, your numbers was part of the numbers that we're looking at forced leveling, that adding onto the new career field. So I just thought this was just leaving that career field and the people was the hardest thing I had ever done. So on top of that, so throughout those years, life happens and I get a divorce. But we're doing well, We're both raising the kids. We're shared parenting. It's working out really well. So so now I go to another career field and I have to PCS. I have to leave. So in the process of that, me thinking I would be a right path for a while, I had started building a home. I had signed the contract. So I got hit with retraining, and then they told me that you're most likely going to be leaving the space. So I had to go over there and fix that. I wound up getting all my earnest money back because I used the VA, got the earnest money back. But I had to leave my kids. Yeah. So that was hard.
What rank were you?
By then, I think I was a tech sergeant.
So E6?
E6.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long were you away from the kids?
I left in 2003. I went to Langley. I went to Langley Air Force Base. So the good thing about it, and God works in mysterious ways. So I went to Langley. My children's father's from Maryland. So we worked it out that he brought them out every month. So I saw them on all the holidays. They were with me. The people here in this community were great. I mean, like the teachers, they understood. Parent-teacher conferences, I could talk to them. They would turn the phone on so I could hear them. So it was hard because I had never left my kids like that before. But it worked out because I was only there for 2 years and got hit again to PCS. So I thought, PCS, I thought I'd be here at Langley. I thought this is where I would retire. Got hit to go on a remote assignment to Kunsan. So let me back up. When I retrained into education and training, I went to be a training manager at Langley for the 1st Fighter Squadron. Whew! You want to talk about some work. I mean, those guys, they're jobbing over there. So being here at Wright-Patterson, this is not a flying assignment. There's no planes here. So you don't really get to see the big picture of why you're really doing what you're doing.
Well, there are a few planes here.
There's a few.
There's a few.
There's a few. They belong to like the 445th.
Okay.
But they don't belong to Wright-Pat. So we don't have any crew chiefs here or anything like that. For me, it was kind of like backwards. I wished I would have seen that at the very beginning. I did a little bit in Blytheville and at Langley, at Lincoln, Feltwell, just a little bit. But when I worked on the maintenance side of the house, whew, that was some work. I was their training manager, and I was just amazed at how young these guys were, dealing with $1 million planes, It was nothing to see like a little A1C sitting in the cockpit of a F-22 when they brought them there, doing what's called a bird walk, a bird bath or something. They're taking the plane down to go get it cleaned and all of that. And he's just sitting up there and you're thinking, okay, that plane is worth millions and millions of dollars that you're in control of, and how hard those guys work on that flight line. Rain, snow, sleet, it doesn't matter. They got to be out there because the planes have to take off. So I was so glad I got to see that side of the Air Force, to see, okay, hey, yeah, I need to make sure that these guys are up on their training, because if they're not up on their training, they get disqualified. They get disqualified. The planes are not worked on. The planes are not worked on. The pilots can't fly them. If the pilots can't fly them, they can't do the sorties. So it was just so much that really opened my eyes. So I did Langley, loved it. loved working with the maintainers, had a really close-knit group of people, a lot of people that looked out for you, you know. Did that, and then got a call one day right after Christmas, and my boss said, did you get an email? And I'm thinking, why would I get an email? It's Christmas, I'm sitting here. And he was like, you got orders. And I said, I got orders? Where'd I get orders to? And he said, Korea. And I was like, stop playing. Stop playing. He was like, no, you did. I was like, where in Korea? And he was like, well, hold on. And it was like, as soon as I logged into, I think it might have been like my virtual or something, that I saw that I had orders to Korea. And I thought, what? I thought this was going to be it for me. I thought I was going to retire here in Virginia. But no, God had other plans. And I went to Korea for a year. Yeah, in the maintenance squadron again.
So can you walk me through what you actually did in a day as the training manager?
So when I was at Langley, I was called the scheduler, and the scheduler is the person who schedules all of the classes for the maintainers to go to. And then we have what's called a field training detachment, and they belong to another MAGCOM called AETC. But these specific maintainers are put there to teach. So they teach our other maintainers, get them spun up on everything, all the qualifications they're supposed to have. So my job was to schedule the classes, find out how many people who needed the classes, schedule those classes, do what we had, what was called SOT, was like status of training report, and that was reported to the commander with all the other commanders in there once a month, and then once a quarter it was reported to the base commander so that he would know what kind of training his maintainers were getting, if they were all getting their qualifications like they were supposed to. So that job kept me really busy because, I mean, even though I was a training manager, I had other training managers around me that were actually working in squadrons. So they were actually, you know, making sure these guys got all the going to the classes like they were supposed to. And then at the end of the month, I was tallying it all up, tallying all the stats up. And so basically I was telling on everybody, you know, at the end of the month and say, okay, you know, AMXS, your person didn't come to training and this is the reason why. And they would fuss amongst themselves and, you know, then just put the numbers up on the board. They were so, how can I say, they're very serious about their training. There was no playing around when it came to that. That was a showstopper for them. And so, you know, what you told them was gospel. You know, you're telling those commanders about their members being trained. So they took it seriously. You know, it wasn't no warm fuzzies. It was just basically black and white. There was no gray. Either you did it or you didn't, you know. So that's what I did there, and then left Langley and then PCS to Korea. Oh, yeah. So I went to Kunsan. It wasn't as nice as Osan. Osan was the place that you go shopping, you know, and everybody's there having a good time. And Kunsan was the place that when you did an exercise, they lock it up. You're stuck on that base. You're not going anywhere and nobody's coming on, you know, and worked with some really good people there and that's one of the hardest working assignments I've ever had. Yeah. That I worked, you know, 12-hour days for an administrative person. That's kind of a lot, you know. And sometimes that was driven by when you have the exercise, even though the rest of the world is still going on, the rest of the Air Force is still going on, we're stuck in time right there for that whole week. Everything closes down. I can't do anything. I don't have access to my desk or anything. So I'm playing exercise. I'm doing this. And then once we're done with that, after the 7th day, then now I got to catch up. I got to catch up to all the emails. I got to catch up to all the schedules. I got to do all of that. And then 3 weeks later, I got to go back and do the same thing, you know. And then the communication, we're overseas and trying to communicate with people stateside, the time difference. That was a big thing too. But in between those, so In medical logistics, I actually deployed. I deployed twice. Well, 3 technically, but twice. I went to Saudi Arabia. Loved the atmosphere there. The first time I went, we were at PSAB, Prince Sultan Air Base.
Year and rank. And where were you? Which base did you get?
I was at Langley.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry. I was at Wright-Patterson when I deployed to PSAB. I want to say I was a staff sergeant. Went there. It was before 9/11, so things were good. Just kind of did our job there. We deployed with. We were deployed there with some people. I want to say from Andrews Air Force Base. So you got to meet people. We were part of the Advon team. There was like about 9 of us, and that was like the first people that would go in. So Andrews Air Force Base was turning over to Wright-Pat. So about 9 of us would go in first, get there for about 2 weeks, and then the rest of our team would join us. And so I remember when all the people from Wright-Pat got off the plane after we had been there, and we were like, oh, y'all need sun. Yeah, they were like, so everybody was so pale. We was like, oh, we're over in the nice sun tanning. Did that, got to meet some really nice people, got to kind of see what the job was about outside of a real hospital, Stayed there for like three months or so. I'd gone there with my boss, and then we married up with some other, what we call loggies, logistics people, some other loggies. And so there was probably like about 6 of us, and we just kind of ran the loggie shop. Delivering supplies, getting supplies in, that type of stuff. So the first one was good. We could travel, we could go downtown, we could buy jewelry. Everybody was so happy that we were there. The second deployment after 9/11 wasn't so, no. It was more, it was a really tense moment. So, so the second time I go, I'm a tech sergeant. So now I'm running the shop. It was just us. I think there might have been like three or 4 loggies and then 2 medical equipment guys. We went there with, we had Air National Guard stationed at our base. So they went with us, and that was good, that it was like a seamless, you couldn't tell who was guard and who was active duty. So that was wonderful, and it was some great people. We had a lot of issues with getting supplies in. We ordered from, I think it was called Premissons from Germany. But we had issues with our stuff getting caught up in customs when it came to the base. So when they would fly in, the Saudis would take our stuff, take our supplies and lock it up. And so what we tried to do was that, so they had given me a vehicle. So what happens is when the stuff came in on the plane, somebody from TMO will call me. And then I would get dressed and get in my truck and go over there and try to get at least the refrigerated items, because we were still, before we went over there, we had to have anthrax shots. And so the Saudis didn't see a need for that, because there's not going to be an anthrax attack. So why do you need immunizations for anthrax? So they wouldn't give it to us. So as soon as it got off the plane, they would confiscate it, or they would leave it sitting on the flight line, and it would ruin because it would get too hot. They would also take our supplies and put them in a tent and lock them up. And they would lock them like in an ISO shelter. And we had a lock and they had a lock. And then that's just how it went until it got verified through customs up in Riyadh that everything on the list. So a pharmacist up in Riyadh would have to go through the list to make sure we weren't bringing anything in we were not supposed to. So that was different. So I think we were there for 4 months, and we only got maybe 1 or 2 shipments of supplies, just because they would lock them up and they would keep them. And so once I had to go down to the flight line and actually talk with the Saudis. So I had an interpreter, and he's from Egypt. So he did all of the talking. So we go down there, and they were like, you know, they had like all these little ISO shelters. It was like, you know, little connexes. They were all set up down there by the flight line. And so you go in one, and so I'm in there, and I have on my actual my desert uniform, and we go in there. So we're sitting there. So now we're on the floor on a rug. We're just sitting there, and the guys come in. 2 guys come in. And so I'm talking to the interpreter because I'm thinking that the Saudi guys can't speak English, so that's why he's here. So I'm talking to him. They would answer to me in English, but they wouldn't talk to me directly in English. And I thought, this is weird, you know?
Was it because you were a woman?
Yes.
Okay.
It's because I'm a woman. So I remember them giving me like tea. That was their thing. And it was like 115 degrees outside. And it was like this hot tea. And I was sweating. And I'm like, okay, but I knew it was the polite thing to do. So that was interesting. And we also had we had a young man from the Navy. He had a stroke. And he had to go up to Riyadh, to the hospital, the civilian hospital there, because we had an agreement with them. If there was anything out of our scope of practice and we needed immediate care, we had a contract with them that they would take care of our military people. It was a safe hospital. So we had to go up and pick him up. So they had airvacked him out, didn't know who he was. I just knew we had to go up there and pick him up. But I had to go because I had the credit card that had the highest balance on it, so that I could go pay for the rest of the bills that we owed up there at the hospital, and then we could pay and get him out of there. So there was 2 of us. So of course I had to ride in the back seat, and I had to be covered in my abaya and all of that type of stuff. So I'm up there, and we're going up there to the hospital, and we go inside. And, you know, we're just trying to get beeline straight to him. We know what room he's in. We know what ward he's on. We just want to get to him, get in, get out. So we go in there, and he's so happy to see me. He hugged me. He hugged the other guy, and another guy stayed in the car. And he was like, I am so happy to see you guys. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, of course, I greeted him, too, because, you know, I'm happy to see you, too. But he was really happy to see us. And he said that they had been giving him propaganda. Like for his breakfast, they would give him his breakfast meal, but they put a newspaper on there of somebody who had gotten beheaded, you know? So he's like, I'm ready to go. So I said, okay, let me go pay your bill. So a nurse, it was a Philippine nurse, and a lot of them will come over there and work as contractors. So they got paid good money. And I remember she took me to where I could go pay the bill. And I was standing in line. There was like, a line for the men and a line for the women. Now, there was no one in either line, but I just had to stand there and wait for them to, you know, motion me on. So I went and I told them I'm here to pay the bill for, you know, Prince Sultan Air Force Base, gave them a credit card and everything. So I paid the bill. And so we were going back. And so we get on the elevator. Well, we attempt to get on the elevator. And as soon as the elevator up, there was all of these Saudi men in there. They all had on their stuff, you know, and they saw me and just turned their backs to me. Yeah, and the women had on their abayas, but they were completely covered up, and they had on all their stuff. And so my heart just started beating, and I was thinking, please don't make me get on the elevator with them, because I don't know, you know. And then she said, well, this elevator is full. Let's just take the stairs. And I'll think, thank you, Jesus. Let's just take the stairs. And they weren't going to do anything. It was just, I was just intimidated. So we go back and we get our patient, and we're leaving. We're trying to book out of there. We didn't bring any pants for him. When they airbagged him out, he had shorts on. So nobody thought to bring him pants, and we thought, well, maybe we should get some hospital pants. We were like, you know what? By the time we try to get all that, let's just go. So we're moving real quick. And 2 Saudi policemen stop us. And so it was just like a hospital, like a corridor, and then you go down a hallway, and one of those hallways were for royal family. And they were just sitting right there, and they was like, you know, you guys need help, where are you going? And we're like, we just paid his bill. We're from Prince Sultan. We're gonna take him to get out of here. And he was like, where's his pants? And we were like, well, we don't have any pants for him. He said, well, you guys need to leave the hospital now, because they don't show legs and arms and things like that. So we were like, okay. We were booking out of there. We got in there and we were like, whew, we left there and we went to the nearest base, which was Riyadh, just reported, you know, what had happened, just so somebody knew. So we weren't taking that long drive all the way to Prince Sultan and no one knew what went on. And so we went there. And but that was the second tour. It was really different, you know. Security was tight. You know, before my first tour, I had on a abaya. The second one, I had a bulletproof vest on under it, you know. So I'm thinking, this is real, you know. And it was scary, you know, when you land. I remember when we landed there for my first tour, they were like, you know, we need you to be quiet. And I'm thinking, I'm on a plane. Who's going to hear me? The plane is loud enough, you know. But they were like, you know, take all the shades, pull them down, and be quiet.
I remember.
So I'm like, okay, this is serious, you know. And you get there and it's dark, and then they're moving you from place to place. You don't know where you're at until the daytime, until you can see what's going on. And the same thing when we, you know, left there. You know, they would, you know, if you got like Airman of the Quarter or seniors, NCO of the Quarter or something, they would give you like incentive flights. Nobody wanted those flights. They're like, you know, I'm taking 2 chances in the air, landing and leaving. I don't need an incentive flight to see anything. So that was Prince Sultan. Great place. That place was like, they treated us like queens and kings, you know. Every holiday they did ice sculptures. It fed us well. We had Olympic-sized pools. There was food all over the place. You know, we worked. Granted, we worked 12-hour days, but it was worth it because you didn't have anything else to do. You know, as long as you knew that your family was taken care of back stateside. And that's one of the things that I'm very fortunate that their dad, you know, I had no worries. You know, it's one thing to have to deploy and leave your kids, but to have to deploy and worry about them too, I didn't have any worries like that. So that made it easier for me, you know, to take that second deployment and go over there and do that, and came back. You know, it was what it was. And I think that's the only one that I had, only actual deployment, those only 2 that I had. Yeah, so for the most part, it's been good. You know, I left Korea, came back here. Go ahead.
More about Korea. Okay. So you weren't really able to get out and go shopping?
So we could, yeah, we could. So, yeah, I took tours and stuff. I mean, everything was set up for us there. It's just that in Kunsan, it's more countryside, you know. So you see more farms and stuff like that, as opposed to Osan. That's like the city. You're near Seoul. You're near the nice hotel, like the 5-star hotel for the Army. So we would catch the bus up there. You could catch the bus, but for me, some people went every weekend, and that wasn't what I wanted to do. I was busy working to begin with. And then when I had my time, I just kind of wanted to stay, you know, on the base, go to church, you know, go over to the club for raffles or whatever, and kind of congregate with my friends. And then you could go shopping off base. I actually had a car. My one friend sold me his little beater, so I had like a little car so I could go downtown. And some of the people, for the most part, were nice. Yeah.
Now, when I was in Korea, they treated stoplights like art. They were just there to look at.
Kind of roll through it.
They never stopped.
They never stopped.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
Did you have that experience?
I did not. I didn't drive very much just because I couldn't read the signs. I read enough to get, like, you know, the permissions to drive back and forth on base. But in downtown, like, just to go to like the little store, if you wanted to go like to their version of Walmart, I did that. One thing was funny to me one time, and we got stopped for, you know, they were doing like, you know how they do like here, you get stopped, you get like, see if you've been drinking and driving. And we were getting off the exit ramp, and they stopped us, and we actually had to take a breathalyzer test right there on the spot. And I thought, isn't that like an invasion or something? Can you really do that? I mean, if you didn't have a cause, but it was just a line that they were just stopping people to making sure you was not drinking and driving. So I'm like, okay, this is different. It was nice. Like some bases like I've been to, I'll go back. I'm like, oh, I had a good time. I have no reason to go back to Kunsan. I really don't. It served its purpose. because when I left Langley, so a lot of times when you PCS like that, you go on overseas, like a deployment like that, you get to have a selection of the bases that you want to come back to. None of the bases that I want to come back to was on that listing when I left Langley. So I thought, well, I'm just going to roll the dice and see what happens. And about 3 to 4 months before I came back, the listing came out because I had called back to Langley to say, hey, do y'all have any openings? And they said, no, we don't have any openings for training managers. You know, they're all full. So I'm like, crap. Well, on my, what we call a wish list, looked at it, it had Langley on there, it had Texas, 2 or 3 bases at Texas, it had Florida, and at the very bottom it said Wright Pat. So I was like, this is my opportunity to get back to my boys. So I came back here. Yeah, came back here. I was the base training manager. Did that for a year, and they converted that position to civil service, and then left there and then went down to the base level. Did that for a while, and then I went up to the headquarters building, did training for a while up there, and then did a lot of helping the IG out, going out and inspecting training programs. And then once I kind of focused on what I wanted to do, I knew when I came back here I wanted to retire. So I finished my bachelor's degree, bought a house, and retired. Yeah, I was tired by then.
Where did you get your bachelor's?
At Park University. Yeah, I got it at Park. That's the good thing about it. Like, you're in the military, you can stay in school for 20 years. Nobody judges you. If you just take one class a time, as long as you're just doing something. And I think when I first started, I was just kind of just doing something to be doing it. But then I started focusing, and I'm like, you know what? I have seen proof that military jobs are not guaranteed. I was very fortunate that I had a job to retrain into, but some people do not. Some people, it's like, okay, thank you very much, but it's over for you. So I said, now it's time for me to start looking more for me. I see the military as a give and take, you know. They'll give, and they take, you know. And so our relationship, it was good. You know, they gave and I took, and then, you know, they took and I gave, you know. And when I say that they took, you know, I just see it as though I missed a lot by not being near my family, you know. But that's a choice that I made, but that's not a choice that my children made. So then when it came down to it, you know, I said, hey, you know what? I need to kind of start focusing on what I want to do when this chapter of my life is over. Loved it, have met some great people, you know.
Are you in contact with any of them still?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my boss, the very first lady that I met when I came here, and she'll tell you to this day, when she saw me, we drove from Montana to here, and I just wanted to stop in the squadron and say hello. I had my baby on my hip and my 4-year-old, I was holding his hand, and that's how she remembers meeting me to this day. That was in 1995. That's one person that I can tell you that I have probably talked to at least every day from that day, either via text, via email. We work in the same building now. That's one, yeah, that is a blessing. Our friendship is such a blessing. Yeah.
What do you do now?
I am a training coordinator at the School of Aerospace Medicine. So what that involves is that the School of Aerospace Medicine, that's where the flight doctors go and the flight nurses and technicians. We also have biomedical technicians there and public health technicians. And there's a schoolhouse there. It used to be down at Brooks Air Force Base, but now it's here. And we have a tech school that the brand new kids from basic training come here to get training. And so my job is to coordinate the schedules, work out any funding that they may need for a new course, do any type of administrative work for students that get eliminated for the classes. I do a lot of data statistics, dealing with how many students we're putting through, what's our workload, what's our student load. So it keeps me busy, yeah.
So
yeah.
a lot of what you did before, but as a
Kind of
civilian?
somewhat, yeah. It's still training. It's still monitoring training. but it's kind of close to that. So the job that I did before helps me with this job, you know. So
And it helped you get the job, probably.
it did. The experience helped me get the job. I retired in 2010, and I wanted to take some me time. So I said, I'll never get this much time off again. So I took about 6 months off, you know, that I was cooking breakfast for my son in the morning before he went to school and had dinner ready for him when he came home. I did all of that. And then I think it might have been like April, I was like, I need a check. I need some money. I need to get out and get a job. So I was doing volunteer work down at Children's Medical Center. So when I retired, that first 2 months, it was all good. But when you're at home and no one else is at home with you, that's no fun. You know, you can't call up your friends and say, hey, let's go to lunch. They're all working. So I also missed not having people expect me places. You know, I missed that. You know, nobody was asking, where's Alicia at? You know, so I volunteered down at Children's Medical because my kids had been at Children's Medical. They gotten a lot of care from there, and it was excellent care. So I just wanted to give back. So I volunteered 1 day a week to go down there and help in this, it was like the resource room that you can go and the kids could check out videos. Or if the patients had questions about their kids' diagnosis, we could pull up a packet for them and put that stuff together for them. And so Children's is really smart when it comes to that. You know, if you volunteer, they hone in on what your specialty is and they'll use it. So it's not like you wasted time. When I left there, my brain was like, oh, you know, because you have to think, you know. So I did that, and I got a call one day from one of my coworkers, and he said, hey, our officer who was in charge of our shop saw your picture in the paper. What happened was I did like a helmet fitting for kids down at Sinclair, and they took a picture of me because I was volunteering. My old boss he was working at Children's as the director of medical logistics down there. And so he called me and he was like, I saw your picture in the paper. He said, you're volunteering? I said, yeah. He said, are you not working? I said, no, not yet. You know, he was like, well, I think I got the perfect job for you. So he does an interview with me. He has someone else do an interview with me, and she does an interview with me, and she says, well, okay, you know, I think you're qualified for the job, but I have other candidates for the job, so I'll let you know. Okay, I couldn't get a feel of it. She had like a poker face on, so I'm like, okay. So I had put out resumes on base, and nothing was coming, you know, at me, and so I just went to, I think it was like, I don't know, it was like headhunters.com or something like that. I just put my resume out there. And so I had a second interview with Children's. That went fine. So she said the next interview will be a panel interview. And then we'll have other people that you may be working with. And then, you know, we'll see how that goes. And she said, it's you and another person. I still couldn't get a feel from her. So that was that. It was like on a Thursday. So Thursday afternoon, I get a call from one of the companies that I had put my resumes out there. And they said, hey, we want to send your resume in to Wright Patterson because they're looking for somebody with your skill set. Okay. An hour later, they came back, they said, okay, they want to hire you. I'm like, wow, that was quick. It was a contractor's job. I'm like, okay, quick. So later on the next day, the lady from Children's called back and she says, okay, now I want to set you up for an appointment for the panel. And I said, I'm sorry, I have another job. And she was like, no. And I was like, yeah. And I told her, I said, I couldn't read your face. I didn't know if you wanted to hire me or not. So I got on with Wright Pat at the School of Aerospace Medicine as a contractor, did that job, and then they wound up putting a permanent position in civil service. So I was able to apply for that job and I got it. So I've been there ever since 2011. I love it. I love the fact that I still get to be part of the military portion of it. You know, I still get to interact back and forth with the airmen and the NCOs and the officers and stuff like that. I think that's what helped me with my transition out of the service, that I just didn't have to go cold turkey. you know, with nothing. I still get to interact with them on a daily basis, you know, even if they just come in and ask me questions about, you know, what's the right thing to do as far as their students or funding and that type of stuff. So I love that piece of it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was going to ask you, how did you readjust to civilian life?
Uh-huh.
You answered.
That was it. Yeah, that helped me.
Okay. Are you a member of any veterans organizations?
I am. Just the one that we're all a member of. I know, what is it called? Miami Valley Veterans Women, the one with Cheryl. I can't remember the full name of it.
Miami Valley Veterans Women
She's gonna
Collaboration.
Kill us. Yes.
Something like that.
Yes. That's the only one. And I like that group. I like the group for the fact that it doesn't have to, that there are spouses there too, because they've experienced it too. They've been through the trenches just like we've been through the trenches. So I like that part of it. I like the stuff that they tell us. So what I have found out in the military, they tell us where to go, when to be there, when not to be there, what to do when you get there. Civilian is not like that. You know, you got to dig and find stuff out for yourself. You know, when I was in the military, I mean, they told you, you know, how much time you need to do to retire, what you're going to get when you retire. This is how you go about getting this and this. And that's something that is just instilled in you as you go. But civil service, it's not like that. It's kind of like you may just happen to hear that somebody's having a seminar, or you may happen to overhear somebody talking about, you know, their benefits. And you're like, oh, how do I do that? They may give you a book, but nobody explains anything to you. And then you got to call all these hotlines to get people to tell you stuff. So I say that to say that I am glad that we have this women veterans group, because we pass information back to each other, you know, and that's a good thing, because if you didn't know somebody, it's just that you just be sitting around waiting, wishing, I wish they had this and I wish they had that. But when you start talking to women in the same situation you're in, they're like, oh, they do have this, or they do have that, or they don't have it, but you can go this place and get it. Yeah, so I like that. And I like that, you know, we took our first little trip a couple years ago, and that was nice. Yeah.
Okay. Very exciting. Has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general? Yeah, but you know what? It really didn't until 9/11 for me. You know, before that, I was in a travel. I never thought I would see, you know, war or some of the people coming back, the amputees, the PTSD. Man, I tell you, I never thought I would see that. I don't think my mind has changed on it. I think sometimes it's just a necessary evil. Yeah, I think it's just a necessary evil. I just wish that we could deal with our people coming back from it a lot better. I think that I have a lot of women friends that women are so used to just doing it. Just do it, you know, get it done, you know. And they always put themselves last. And a lot of friends that are dealing with PTSD, you know, and they just kind of like won't talk to people about it. I thought the men were bad, but the women are really bad, you know. It's just like, okay, I'll just deal, you know. But it's like sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't do it by yourself, you know. So I just wish that there was an organization that didn't put such of a stigmatism on people, actual military active duty people, when they come back, because a lot of times they're afraid to tell people the problems that they're having, you know, because they're afraid that they may put a code on them, you know, may take them out of the jobs that they're doing, you know. And I think if it was made more readily available to them prior to them departing from the service, it would help them out so much more, so much better. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything you feel that we haven't discussed or that you'd like to add to this interview?
No, I just, I don't think so. I think for me, I've loved everything that I've done. The military has been great for me. I'm very blessed to have kids who understand, kids that have never asked me, why are you leaving? You know, and I want to relate that to the environment that I've put them in, you know, and the positive people that I've put in their life. And the military has allowed me to do that, you know. So I don't regret not one. I'd do it all over again. Yeah, if I had to. Mm-hmm.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear and see this video? I think service before self. You know, I truly believe in that. I truly, you know, give some of yourself. I mean, not everybody can serve, and I get that, but there are different capacities. You know, you may not be able to put a uniform on, but you may be able to help that member in the uniform, you know, whether it's taking care of the family while he's deployed, whether there's more in the grass while he's deployed, or whether it's just telling them, hey, you know, I so appreciate your service. I hear that so much, and that to me means so much, you know, because if you think about the people who came from the Vietnam War, they didn't get that, you know, so we are so blessed to have people who may not believe in the fight, but they believe in us, you know. So I think that that would be something, you know, just, you know, do your best, help out where you can, you know. Yeah, and just support, you know, just support. I mean, just remember that, you know, we sign a dotted line and we're tasked to do things, you know, things that you may not agree with, but we're tasked to do things. But just have faith, you know, in those people and continue to support them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This has just been very enjoyable, very enlightening. I appreciate it.
Good.
This concludes the interview with Alicia Scriven.
Mm-hmm.